Hey, welcome back to Dukes on Twitch. Back with our second match with Legacy Zoo up against Zeb Spellmaster, which should be pretty fun. Played against Snow Control in game 1. This hand's pretty good. It's got a nice curve as well. Turn 1 Reclaimer or removal, turn 2 Sylvan Library, turn 3 Oko. So I'm definitely going to keep this. Reclaimer interesting. A great one-drop, but also pretty good late game as well, because you can play it around something like Lightning Bolt. Tropical Island. Hierarch. Okay, this looks to be some sort of Infect deck. So I probably want to keep this removal for the actual Infect creatures. Could still be something like a Bant. But I'm going to put it down to most likely Infect. Still going to go with the turn 1 Elvish Reclaimer, because I don't want to waste these on things like Blooded Agent. They can be pretty rough. So let's get a Taiga, because then we can cast Lightning Bolt next turn, and just go with Reclaimer. One nice thing about this start is that my opponent might think it could be something like lands. So if they think it's lands, maybe they feel that Inkmoth Nexus isn't a great Infect creature that they should rely on, and it might actually cause them to kind of preemptively brainstorm into another type of creature, which would be pretty nice. Days on the Elvish Reclaimer is fine. Not really too fussed about that. We have another Reclaimer. This also means the Sylvan Library is less likely to be countered, but you never know sometimes, unfortunately. The days here also means that if they want to play something like a Blooded Agent, Spellskite Maindeck, interesting. Well, that definitely gives away that it's going to be a Infect deck. Alright, I'm going to get the Sylvan Library down. Especially against Infect, we can use Sylvan Library really aggressively, which is nice. I'm going to get a Savannah, because then we can actually cast Swords to Plowshares and Bolt of the same turn. Sylvan Library resolving is pretty huge. I don't believe they have a main deck way of answering, which is nice. So we'll see how this goes. Just gonna 6 here as well. Spellskite main deck is interesting. Makes it a lot harder, but at least we do have this Swords to Plowshares, which is nice. The Bolt doesn't take care of it, but the Swords does. We also have Oko, which can deal with it, but if we make this a 3-3, with Exalted it's a 4-4, and they could easily kill the Oko on a swing back with just one Palm spell. The funny thing is, though, that next turn we could take 2 cards off the Sylvan Library and go down to 10, but with the Spellskite in play and a Noble Hierarch, it's not too hard for them to win just with normal combat damage, so maybe I want to be a little less aggressive with the Sylvan Library. I think taking 4 is fine. They're not too close to something like Become Immense, which is nice, but we'll see how this plays out. Glistener Elf, okay. They can attack for 1 here, but they don't. Interesting. Not too sure of the reasoning there. I'm gonna put this back, but I'm gonna pay for these 2. I just totally went against my reasoning. Classic. Well, that's not too bad. So let's start off with a Swords to Plowshares on the Glistener Elf. So this is interesting. If they counter it, then the Bolt does nothing. So maybe I have to just go after the Spellskite, because if I Swords the Glistener Elf and they counter it, then the Bolt does nothing. might be like an Invigorate. That's not too bad. At least it's been done on my turn. So now we can play the Reclaimer, which is a pretty good blocker, and I believe it stops any sort of chance of them having lethal the following turn. But we can't be too precautious. Days, okay. So Invigorate and Berserk does it. I believe Become Immense is pretty close as well. But they would need a fetch land for that, I believe. They didn't have Scale Up, which is a card that's seen play, which is nice. Invigorate. Fines. There it is. A little bit unfortunate, but nothing too much I can do there. Rec Sage I like. Pyroblast I like because it can hit Blooded Agent, and Fork Bolt is pretty good as well. Blood Moon's interesting, and if I want to get aggressive on their creatures, I actually don't mind this because it also turns off Inkmoth Nexus, so that's actually a fair bit of stuff we're bringing in. Bolt can come out. Ramunap can probably come out if we're playing the Blood Moon game. I don't mind going down on a Green Suns. To be fair, the Rec Sage might be a little bit overkill. Maybe the Rec Sage is... the Pridemage and Okos are just enough. I do like Sylvan Library. The Swords and Bolts are great. Karakas doesn't do a whole lot either, but I'm not sure I can go down on 2 lands. You know what, let's try it. Domri is interesting because it can fight, but maybe 2 isn't where I want to be. I'm going to go down on 1 Oath. Oath is nice, but I think this is a pretty strong spot. The Pyroblast are really nice because Blooded Agent can be a bit of an issue, so at least countering it on the stack allows us to play around any sort of protection spells like Vines, Invigorate in regards to Bolt. Love to play first. And this hand is okay. Turn 1 we have Lightning Bolt, turn 2 we have Sylvan Library, turn 3 we have Dryad Blood Moons. I'm going to keep this. I'm going to lead on the Foothills. I kind of hope they play a turn 1 threat, because if they daze or counter the Bolt, then the Sylvan Library is probably coming down turn 2. Taiga. Let's go for Bolt. If we draw another creature, I think here I'm inclined to go for... This is interesting. So if we play Goyf, we can untap, and if we find a land, we can play Domri or Blood Moon. I think Sylvan Library just has the best amount of upside, so if it gets countered, it gets countered, but if it sticks, then that's pretty awesome. Also, putting my opponent back to square one is pretty nice, if they do days. Opponent could have also brought in Spell Pierce. Sorry, Force of Vigor. I don't know why I said Spell Pierce. Which deals with Sylvan Library and Blood Moon, which could be pretty rough, but we'll see how this ends up. Brainstorm. Okay. Another trop. Thinking. Maybe holding up Spell Pierce. Bolt's pretty nice as a removal spell. Alright. Pay 4, pay 4. Play a land. Play Goyf. Opponent having a pretty good think about this. This resolves. I guess either way, I want to use this last forest to cast this Noble Hierarch. We already have a threat, and I'd rather have this Noble Hierarch down, so maybe we could play around Spell Pierce next turn for either Domri or Blood Moon. Worst case, my opponent has crop rotation for Inkmoth and just wins next turn with some absurd hand. But I think Goyf and Hierarch here is more than fine. Forcing it. Interesting. Maybe that means they have a slow hand. I'm still going to go with Hierarch here. Interesting to force the threat, which takes them away a little bit from their plan because they now don't have that force for some sort of removal spell. Spyglass. Okay. Well, I hope you see this Blood Moon now. Probably naming Wasteland. Could also be naming Domri, to be fair. And they're just going to concede. They saw the Blood Moon, so maybe that's good enough. Interesting. I could take out the moons, but I don't think that my opponent has a great way to play around them. But it is interesting. Blood Moons on the draw are a little bit worse. I might just go down to 1 moon. And I think I might just bring back in a Green Sun Zenith. Just to make the deck a little bit more consistent. Oath of Nissa is nice, but I can't find removal. Yeah, let's go with the Green Suns. Thorn's also interesting. I don't think I'll bring in Thorn on the play, but I think I would bring in Thalia. Thalia is nice because the first strike is also pretty huge, meaning that your opponent has to attack with Glistener Elf only if they have a pump spell. Pendelhaven does make it a little bit awkward because, of course, a Pendelhaven Glistener Elf is not too fun to block with a 2/1 creature, but most of the time, Thalia can buy you a lot of time, not just by her taxing effect, but also by her first strike. Klothys is interesting as well. Maybe Klothys is just too slow. The life doesn't really matter. I might just stick with the 2 Blood Moons, to be fair. Obviously there it was a concession, and maybe that was just because my opponent didn't sideboard correctly, but it might just be as well because they put themselves in a position where they couldn't get out of it, where they didn't go for a basic forest, or they didn't have their Noble Hierarchs already out on the field. Kind of mind games as well, because if I start going after their Noble Hierarchs in this game as well, perhaps they think I have a Blood Moon, and perhaps they'll try to play around it a little bit more. This hand is interesting. I think it's okay. We have a threat, we have removal, we have mana acceleration. We don't have any red cards like Red Elemental Blast or Bolt, but I think this is actually pretty good. I probably want to keep the Wasteland for a Insectile operation, but we'll see how this game plays out. Depending on their start, I'll probably start with the Reclaimer if they play Glistener Elf, but I might start with the Hierarch if they start with a Hierarch or a Ponder. Infect seems interesting. Obviously, the more aggressive deck, and definitely, you know, they only have to deal 10, but we have to deal 20, which is a pretty basic sum up of the matchup. But there's a lot of intricacies. We do have, you know, 8 pieces of removal plus some, which is nice, but they have a lot of protection and counter magic. At the same time, they have, you know, 4 Elf, 4 Blighted Agent, 4 Inkmoth, and maybe some other Infect creatures out of the board, but they definitely have less threats than us, so if we get rid of 1 or 2, they might have to start digging for the 3rd, which can buy us a lot of time, which is nice, especially when we're beating down. Opponent having a pretty good think about their hands, which I think you can definitely do. I think Infect is a pretty fast deck, so you can see right now we're at 21 minutes and they're at 13, so they have taken a lot more time to think about their lines, but that's probably because, as I said before, you rely on a few key creatures, so you have to really put in sort of a lot of brain power to what you actually think about, what you want to do, what your opponent could have, what your opponent might do. Mold to 6, okay. Windswept Heath. I laugh if they get a forest. Haha, they did. Classic. Okay. Hierarch. Foothills. I'm going to go for turn 1 Noble Hierarch, and then turn 2, if they play a Blooded Agent, we can Swords it in our turn, which plays around Spell Pierce, which is kind of nice. Doesn't play around any sort of protection spells, but I think that's okay. There probably is a situation as well where I just try to Swords the Noble here, because it does take them off blue mana, but I think that's a little bit too risky, because then it leaves us with nothing for a creature. Elf is going to be fine. Inkmoth Nexus, okay. I'm going to play the Wasteland first to play around Spell Pierce. Does mean it taps me out, which means I could then activate the Inkmoth next turn. Yeah. I think that's okay, because at least it means it takes 1 more mana to activate the Inkmoth and go for it. I could have also let it resolve and then played the Elvish Reclaimer and held up Wasteland, but I think this is okay. They're down to 2 cards, so if they have Invigorate Berserk, they have Invigorate Berserk. I can't really play around that. What do you got for me? Always scary. Always scary playing against Infect. I do find it pretty fun. Of course, the games where they just have it like turn 2 or 3, it's not that great, but you know, that's Legacy, so it will be interesting what happens here. Spells Guide's okay. Not even getting in for 1, interesting. Goyf's actually pretty nice. So let's go land. I could try to play around crop rotation, but I don't think I can play around crop rotation. Okay. I think the extra Reclaimer here is just so good. Probably better than the second Hierarch. Drop pass, okay. Domri. Huh. So Domri's interesting because they have 2 cards in hand. I can attack first with Elvish Reclaimer. And then see what happens with Domri. I think I might cast Domri first, because if they counter it, I probably want to pump up the Goyf here. So let's go Domri first. I'm happy to cast Hierarch. Make this Elvish Reclaimer just a little bit bigger. I can attack with both. Is it better to attack with both or one with Exalted? One gets blocked by Spellskite most likely, but then we can fight it anyway, so I think just attacking with both is fine. They might want to like block with the Spellskite and then pump it, but if I'm taking a pump spell out of the hand as well, I'm pretty happy. Okay. This can fight this. Maybe attacking just with the Reclaimer was correct, because then it's a 6/6, which means that it's a little bit harder to actually trade with the Spellskite if they do pump it. Invigorate, okay. That's fine. Agent's pretty good. I have one card left. Wasteland. Huh. Attack for 6. Two cards for my opponent. I wonder if they attack the Domri, or if they just go for us. Go for us, okay. Bolt. Huh. Alright. Let's attack first. Attack Domri Neg on Spellskite, and then we can either attack them or, sorry, bolt them or bolt the Blooded Agent. It really depends on what happens, I guess. Whew. I think let's fight the Spellskite here. Maybe that's what I do first, because then it actually pumps the Goyf up once, because then it puts a Planeswalker in the bin. Oh, that actually happens. Okay. Bolt you. Could have done this in upkeep to make them tap their mana in their turn, which is probably correct, but I think this just gets there anyway. Nice. Okay. A little bit of a, yeah, some plays that I could have been a little bit cleaner there, but nice to get the win. A little bit scary, so we'll see you in match 3.